Good afternoon and welcome back. This is still the POLITY reaching you live from Abuja. I've been joined in the studio now by the National Coordinator, Coalition of Northern Group Student Wing, Madam EMUSEH BOKUNGA. Good afternoon, welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, sir, and thank you.
Thank you for coming. It's been a while. How have you been?
I've been good. How have you been too?
I've been good. I've been okay, dealing with the state of the nation every other day in the studio here. What about you in terms of school? How's it been? Any updates or improvements?
There are always updates as long as we are alive.
It's either it's getting better or it is getting out of hand.
Is it ever the same?
It's never the same. No day is ever the same. Yesterday can be they're different things today, different one, and tomorrow we hope for the best, but it's never in the same place.
All right. I'm sure you're aware there's been a lot of issues, and something particularly peculiar about students is that interestingly, students are among that demographic where they school and where they live is not always the same.
Yes.
So there's usually a movement across board, and it sort of endangers them more when it comes to insecurity. I'd like to get your thoughts as to the recent happenings and how it's particularly affecting schooling, education, and just your day-to-day really.
Okay, when we now talk about the level of insecurity in its entirety, it is endangering not just the life of students, but even members of communities where those institutions are situated. And in the light of that, it is actually increasing the number of out-of-school students. Because parents are worried about their words, that if they go out of their homes or are out there, will they ever come back? That is, if they will, or will they even come back in the same pace? So it is actually very disheartening that we find ourselves in a situation whereby everyone is scared, and for that reason the quality of education that we have access to in Nigeria, or most especially in northern Nigeria, is actually depreciating.
Right, it's an interesting one. It's a bit sad, to be honest. So let's take it into within the schools, and one of the sad things that we got to know about is in the recent kidnapping that involved, a family, a bunch of family members. The young lady who was killed, it was revealed that she actually had a first class, and it's a sad one because we're hoping to create, the best of workers and wealth creators, and we have this happening. But that being said, in the educational system right now, what would you say is currently the state of things? We've seen a number of updates. We know that the student loans will kick off, and there are talks about how exactly to work out, and that the president suggested inclusion of skills acquisition. I remember last year I spoke to a student who was basically saying that he's more interested in the student loans if it gives an avenue, not just maybe to pay school fees, but to do something else. And I believe that is what is in the works now. So I'd like to get your thoughts as to the situation of things. We're also seeing protests. We saw in some schools where they were protesting in hiking school fees amongst other issues. So I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Okay, for the hike in tuition fees, presently Usman Onfodio University in Sokoto has just increased their tuition fees. Then when you look at Amadin University Zaria, increased their fees earlier, and then with the recent calls and pleas from parents, families, stakeholders, and other notable people in the country, they now slashed down their fees a little. It is actually higher than it was, but then it is not as high as students were expecting it to be. And we can proudly say that Ahmadu Bello is the least, when we talk about paying of tuition fees in the north, and that's applauding. And we are calling out other institutions as well, most especially in northern Nigeria, to also review their tuition fees downward, like Ahmadu Bello University did. That is that for the increase in tuition fee. And then when you look at the day-to-day activities in regards to this Student Loan Act, they talked about the inclusion of skills acquisition. The president made mention that they desire so much that not only those who desire to be lawyers, doctors and professionals should have access to loans. Their desire is that every citizen in this country who deserves a better life and should be able to access these things, even if they cannot actually make it to a formal school setting. So they are thinking of training students into these vocational skills. It is a beautiful thing. We will be very happy about that. But the requirements for all of this, there's nothing that has been said about it.
Well, I think that's one of the interesting parts. Whenever we talk about this, there's still no very clear guidelines.
Exactly.
But I believe at some point we have, let me see, we have about 5 days left in January. So let's see, maybe before then we can get more expansion on it. That being said, let's quickly talk about something else. There's been more focus by the federal government on the issue of fake degrees. A journalist the other day went undercover, got a fake degree, I think in Cotonou or Benin, and he even got called up for NYSC. And I think it kind of made the federal government realize, wow, there's some massive loopholes here. So interestingly, the other day while we were speaking to the Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Mamman, and the question was posed to him, what happens to students who went to these schools without the knowledge of maybe perhaps their other extracurricular activities, to put it that way? And he said everyone is liable. Even if those who've graduated and even gone on to work and they got degrees through that means, they would all be punished and so on and so forth. So I'd like to get your thoughts as to this. As a student, what do you have to say? Because there was a bit of controversy when I think one of the student leaders from one of the neighboring countries was questioned by journalists, and he almost wanted to blame the journalist for uncovering it, as though why was he there, So I'm wondering what your perspective is as a student in the north in Nigeria here.
Thank you very much. This is a very controversial issue, and we must say that it is due to the level of educational decadence in Nigeria that brought about that. If we have a working educational or academic structure in this country, nobody will be going out of their country to study in another man's country, because we will all be looking forward to the development of our own country. The reason why students go out of this country to neighboring countries or even the Western world is because they are trying to run away from strike. They're running away from high increase in tuition fees without outcome. They are also running away from finishing the school without opportunities or even inabilities to create jobs for themselves. So in line to that, they run away to these countries, get these degrees in a short time. For them it's like saving time and all of that, but then it is also destroying their academic future of this country. Truth be told, we are not so proud of whatever is happening in the academic sector right now. And one of the reasons this is happening is due to high level of insecurity. If you are sending your child or your ward to a school, for example, in Katsina, and the levels of kidnapping and banditry is on the increase, and you have an opportunity of sending your child to a neighboring country where he can get the same degree in little time, they will run for the same degree in little time, because their child is safe from the banditry and abduction, they are safe from strike, they are safe from inconsistent payment of tuitions and all of that. It is actually very disheartening. We feel very sorry for those who are victims of this, but this should serve as an eye-opener to the students to be part of the growth for the educational system of Nigeria. And we are calling on the federal government and the Minister of Education, EMUSEH, to look forward into making our tertiary institutions accessible first, affordable, and conducive, so that others will not be going out there and falling into traps. Rather, they will come back home and concentrate on this system to make the country a better place. Because the lack of quality education in this country, most especially in the north, it's actually deteriorating. And when you do not have access to quality education, we end up producing half-baked graduates. Okay, you are in session, there was a banditry attack or a kidnapping in your school, they close down the school for a few weeks, and then by the time you come back, you know, you're supposed to have covered certain curriculum and you've not done that, and they're trying to rush so that another incident will not happen again. So you see, this is reducing the quality of the students we're producing out there, and the North is at the recipient of all of this. And that was why the CNG mainstream organized a 2-day workshop to tackle this insecurity in northern Nigeria.
Speaking about tackling insecurity, what specific protection do you think students need? You know, students are usually within a campus type of environment. I know a couple of, or in recent times, at least within the last 2 years, we've had massive abductions of students, particularly in Kaduna, if I remember correctly, where a bunch of them were taken at once, and you know, and they started, you know, returning them after ransom. You can even go back to the very popular one. We're talking about Chibok girls. These were still in the education sector, even though they were not in university level. So the question is, again, what specifically, how would that look like, trying to, for the security architecture to make sure that students are involved in terms of the protection, because we have a general system of protection where everyone is meant to be protected, their lives and properties, but for the student perspective, what would that look like that would make you feel that, you know what, I think the government has taken specific care to ensure that I'm protected while I'm studying?
Okay, I will start with the point where this Tinubu-led administration kept emphasizing that they are interested in providing security for Nigerians. I think they should stop talking and actually provide security for Nigerians, because Nigerians need that security. We should reduce the too much talk. Start talking about implementation and execution. A lot of promises have been made. Put them to work. You say you have blueprints. Put them to work. Too much of talk is cheap. Action is better. Put these things to work. We are calling forth for implementation. And then it is quite unfortunate that the age bracket of students that are being admitted into universities right now are actually they are actually teenagers, and these people cannot even protect their own selves because they are way too young. Said you can only have access to a university when you're up to 16. Some of the people coming into the university are not even 16. Yes, their birth certificate may read that, but they are not, because most of the parents are trying to rush the students as a result of the country where we find ourselves, because they know once you are getting to 25 or you get to 30, you might not be able to get a job in this country. So they are trying to rush the children to be able to finish schools on time and the likes of that. But at what cost? These students can't even take care of themselves for them to be left alone. They don't even know where to go and where not to go at some point. And that is why most of the institutions provide accommodation on site. That means in those universities for 100 level and 200 level students. That's why they provide accommodations for that. And then for final year, because they're in final year and they should be able to concentrate more on their studies and finish well. Now, this is one. Parents should not rush their children into getting admitted, you know, as underaged students into the universities, so that they will be able to come into the university, which is a diverse world in itself, but we are unified, and they will be able to take care of themselves too, because personal security is one before the one that the next person can provide for you. Tertiary institutions should be more deliberate about building accommodation for students in the campuses. Some of these adoptions take place in residents off campus. So if they are able to have accommodation on campus, in the schools, we can be able to say that they will be okay a bit. That means the security on campus will definitely be at a high or better pace. And then third, there is need for profiling of business owners on campuses, because some of the informants of these evil people are actually living in the same place with us. So there is the need for the profiling of these business owners and their businesses on campus. They should register with the school, the students' deanery, or the structure in the school that makes provision for that, so that they are able to know all the businesses that are operating on campus, what they do. And then aside that, since these people are now on campus, the safety of our students is of paramount importance. And in line to that, the institutions themselves, you know, in collaboration with other law enforcement agencies and the communities around them, likewise the federal government, should liaise to be able to work together, because at this point one person cannot do it, one organization cannot do it. They should all come together and have a collaborative effort. And when they are able to have collaborative efforts, they'll be able to move the security thing forward, because in the process there are intelligence as well.
Sorry to cut in there, but there are some persons who actually want to try to start pulling students into the security architecture, if only for intelligence. Do you think that's a good idea? Perhaps for passing around information about what they're suspecting, or maybe even joining some sort of vigilantes. Is that a reasonable, what I call it, suggestion or idea for students to be involved in the architecture with whatever they can provide?
I won't say a yes or a no, but then one thing I will say is that these are the people that live with themselves and they know what they are passing through. So there is actually need for them to be a part of the system that is trying to bring help to them, because they know where to and what to do and what not to do. There are institutions that actually have other, personnel living in the institutions with the students without the students even knowing. But it is good that the students should be a part of this system to be able to enhance, the access these security personnel will have, to information that will be very, very helpful to the students and their safety.
Thank you so much, Mr. Musa. It's been a pleasure having you and getting to hear your perspective on these issues. If not for time, I would have continued more. But thanks so much for coming and for sharing your thoughts. Thank you. All right, and that's all we take.